So, welcome back to Weird Wolf Unchained. This is our second part of the Hellbound Heart Hellraiser experience. I'm Brand,
I'm Lynn.
and um, this is our follow up, like I said, part two, where Lynn read
The Hellbound Heart.
and I watched Hellraiser. Both of them by Clive Barker because he wrote the book and then he wrote and directed the movie.
And now that we've summarized it and compared the two, we're going to try and talk about it.
So, right now, because it's the easiest thing to do, I have a set of questions that I ask my kids in another little series that I do because they're just now getting into horror movies with me. So we watch a movie, and the first one of those is Paranormal Activity. That should be up at some point before this. And then we're just going to do that series. But yeah, so we're just running off of that right now until we really figure out what the better questions are for this.
It's going to interview me about a movie I've never watched.
Yep. Well, it's been a while.
I honestly don't remember any of it.
So, anyways, if you want that summary, go listen to that first or go watch the movie, read the book, do both, and see how it stacks up and how good we do, how well this works.
Not very well. It's rambling. We didn't quite know what we were doing.
First question I have here is, what are your overall impressions of the story?
So, my overall impressions, I'm not a big horror fan, but it's all right for what it is. I mean, it's okay.
Yeah.
I mean, it's got the horror tropes of not fleshed out characters, and I believe I haven't watched a lot of horror.
It's not fair for the movie either because I was being a little bit jokey with it and stuff. So maybe next time we'll definitely focus on being a little bit more serious.
But it's got the horror tropes of the one-dimensional characters. I believe it's a horror trope anyway. I'm not really well read or watched in horror, but from your many rants I've listened to,
it is
one-dimensional characters.
I don't know if it's a trope so much as it just is what it is.
And then the other one of difficult relationships or relationship problems. I believe that might also be a horror trope. Boyfriends and girlfriends fighting, leading to these things.
Just stories in general. It's a common thing that's used. Because I say it is classified as a trope, the poor characters. But again, like I said, when was that written?
I don't know. What do you look like? I'm holding a book or something?
I suppose. Actually, I want to look at. But I question sometimes when things are called tropes if they're 91. Tropes or not. So that was when that was republished because it couldn't possibly.
Oh, no, 86.
Yeah, I thought.
I looked at the wrong date. Yeah, the republished is 91, 86.
Yeah, so this was like the second book that he wrote. I don't think I read The Damnation Game, and Weaveworld came out after, was the next one after it. So that's the next book you have from him to read.
Yes.
There's no movie for it, so we're not going to do that, but I'm just saying. But he does have some. He's got quite a few books that have been turned into movies, and he's directed most of them.
I think it's all right. I can't really say for the movie, but for the book, overall, it's all right. For the book, I don't really think it completely fits its summary. It's another one of those ones where what's being summarized isn't exactly what the book is. And in the about the author, which I'm sure nobody reads, in the beginning, it says the themes are sadomasochism, pain as a source of pleasure, and morality under duress and fear. And I don't really think those are present either.
Not in the book. It doesn't seem like it really, or maybe you just weren't looking hard enough for them.
I was looking for it.
Were you?
Yeah.
Because they are definitely present in the movie. Frank has a lot of sex, and most of the pictures that Julia's looking at are of him having sex with different women. And I think the opening line from Pinhead is, to some were demons, to some were, or one of the lines, some were demons, to some were angels. We give you pleasures, we give you pain. It's up to you what you're actually after or whatever, something like that.
I did underline that as one of the points where that is on theme, because I do underline themes. I do specifically look for it. But there is the line from the Cenobites where they mention the pain is pleasure, but that's about it. And Frank mentions one about the edge of pleasure being pain. He mentions that once. But morality under duress, like, I can see where the Julia killing people is the morality question, but she's not really under duress, and she's kind of gone off the deep end.
Yeah.
She's like flipped the switch to insanity.
And it's a little bit closer in the movie, but still not on point because she's still not under duress.
Yeah, she's not under duress.
She is stressed. She is freaked out, but she's not doing it in, say, like, what's a good one? I suppose Thanos is maybe the easier one. I mean, it's a much bigger picture, but he's making what most people would consider a morally egregious decision for a better purpose.
Because
he's still not under duress, but she's not making that kind of decision. She's making it for personal reasons. Yeah. She wants something out of it.
She's making it for personal reasons, and she doesn't really struggle with it. In the book, she immediately starts dehumanizing them. She calls them it, and lamb, and meat, and never learns their name until the end. The last guy, she learns his name. So she, like, immediately dehumanizes them, and her concerns are just not getting caught and not having them attack her back. Yeah. Her concerns aren't really, is this the right thing to do?
Yeah.
So it's not really a morality under duress. So overall, I think it's an okay book. I just don't think it fits its own description or what about the author says the themes are.
Yeah. And like I said, I kind of did it on the spot, so I didn't spend a whole lot of time looking for the, like, back of the movie description or whatever.
They don't ever really show pain being a source of pleasure either. They just show pain.
And they don't really do it in the movie either. The second one gets a little bit better into it, and there are other things that happen. But, like, for being a very sexually charged story, or supposed to being a very sexually charged story, there's really not a whole lot.
There's really not. Like, even in the book where, you know, it doesn't have to worry about its movie rating, it's just Frank in the beginning thinks about his past things, and they're just voluptuous women and all this stuff. And
yeah.
Anyway, your next question.
You don't get into Frank's head any in the movie, so you don't really get any of that stuff that's going on. You have to infer it for yourself from how characters are acting and whatnot. It doesn't really give a whole lot in the background on a Wikipedia page for the book. Just Barker worked as a hustler in the 70s, and his experiences made him want to tell a story about good and evil in which sexuality was the connective tissue. The look of the Cenobites was inspired by S&M clubs such as the underground club called Cell Block 28 in New York, where people were getting pierced for fun. Which is something I can relate to. I did that a lot as a teenager.
I can see the sex being the drive because he does think he'll get more pleasure out of it. It's just not what he expects, and he makes the sacrifice.
Story itself doesn't focus enough on it. There needs to be that in-story lore-building fluff that isn't there. Like, that's the stuff between the lines that wasn't put there. Because it I don't know. It's hard. You read a lot more books. Does it seem like something that he's maybe spent a lot of time on, or is it just something that he just sat down and did and was like, all right, good enough?
I mean, it is well written. It's just, I think because it's, like, intended to be a short story too, with the choppiness and everything.
So, like, this is definitely something that probably should have been in, like, books. I forget
what is that,
what the original Books of Blood is the later edition collection's title, but it should have been in there and maybe just focused on Frank and what he experiences with the Cenobites when he opens the box.
Yeah.
That would have been a lot better, which is a story I wanted to tell. Not necessarily Frank, but something similar.
But both Frank and Julia do make their bad choices based on wanting sex, so there is that.
Yeah. I have plot and execution here as secondary, as like follow-up questions, but I think we kind of covered it well enough.
I give them both 4s. the plot was good and it was executed well.
Well enough.
Yeah.
I mean, we certainly discussed lots of issues there.
There were lots of issues, but there were little things, and it is being what it is. It is a short story. I've read books on 800 pages that still didn't have good plot execution.
That's bad. So yeah, what was your favorite part?
So my favorite part, which we now know from the summary isn't in the movies, but is the ringing of the bells that happens when the box is open, and not necessarily when it's open, because the bells also ring for Julia when it's not opening, when she gets drawn to the room. I think it's kind of like a when the veil is thinnest kind of thing. When Frank's able to reach through and get messages to her, the bell rings when the schism is open. And I like in the book how they use the different tones of the bell, the description of it, whether it's ringing inside their head, who it's ringing for, and the point when it comes out into the world when all the shit happens. That's my favorite part. I love storytelling devices like that.
Well, like, this isn't my favorite part. I just want to elaborate because we didn't really do it in the summary. When Julia first goes upstairs in the movie, they're just looking at the house. Larry trying to convince her that they want to move in or to move there. She does kind of seem like she's being pulled there. Like there is a drive to go there, just it's not indicated by bells or anything.
I honestly see no reason why the bells weren't in the movie. Audio cues like that are often used in movies.
That's like kind of confused me a little bit.
Because like you can see it in my notes. I circled every time a bell rings.
Yeah.
Because it's a big cue in the books.
And maybe Clive didn't really feel that he needed it as much with the visible representation of things. Visual representation. But it still would have been like, it would have been a nice audible cue in the book that there is a bell ringing and she goes upstairs and discovers Frank's things. And then maybe there's all this cacophony and then it kind of silences a little bit when you focus in on Julia and there's a bell ringing.
Because I thought too, this is why I'm baffled by it not being in there. I thought audio cues were a big thing, especially in horror.
They can be. But Clive Barker was also trying to like do something a little bit different.
Like Halloween, doesn't his theme play every time he shows up?
Not necessarily, but there are moments where there is a very jarring noise to kind of elicit a type of jump scare.
Yeah.
And that's a whole nother matter. I don't want to get into it. But yes, they are used a lot of times. So like you'll have maybe some ominous sounding, tension building music, and then it'll kind of peel off for a second, and then you get that really loud all of a sudden noise. Yes, I did that on purpose. You're welcome.
Thanks. So that was my favorite part.
That was for the audience. I'm sorry, I didn't think about your editing.
That was my favorite part, and it wasn't even in the movie, and I'm baffled by it. That is my answer to that question.
It's hard for me to pick out a favorite point because I was watching it these last couple times. The first one was just a refresher, and then I've watched this movie so many times I kind of checked out a little bit, even though I was supposed to be paying attention. And watching it with more critical, like paying more attention to the story and writing it down and taking notes. Because like, I never really noticed how not good. Like, it's not bad, it's just not good as a movie.
Taking notes really changes the experience, doesn't it?
It does. Or even just being in a more critical mindset. 'Cause, you know, that's not normally a place I go when I watch movies. I want to be entertained. I want to enjoy it.
Sorry.
Hey, I could still do it. I have to do it now because we're doing this. But, like, thinking back, if I had to pick a favorite part, it would be maybe the chains flying out of nowhere and grabbing onto skin. That was highly influential to me when I was in a place where I wanted to start writing stories of my own. And just any scene where the Cenobites are being the Cenobites, because they're just really cool. I think they're really cool. They're visually pleasing on the screen.
Well, they're not in, like, I'd say 70 to 80% of the book.
Still with the movie, that's so those scenes where they are there makes it that much more enjoyable. And I mean, Pinhead instantly became iconic because like there's scenes where he isn't in with the other Cenobites in the book.
He's only in once. He's only in one paragraph.
And like for the movie franchise, he is the staple of Hellraiser. Like he is the Hellraiser.
Which I think is interesting. That he's only in the book for just one scene, one paragraph, one line, but he is the iconic driving force of the movie.
But again, for the movie, I mean, they weren't going to spend a bunch of money making 10 to 15 different Cenobites to have them for different scenes. And, like, in the movie, it would have been a lot more confusing.
Yeah.
Because people see these and then different characters appear and like, what the hell is going on? People who read books generally follow those things a lot better. I think. That's an opinion. I'm not saying people are dumb. I'm just, in a book, things are presented to you differently, so you understand things a little bit differently sometimes. This one's a little bit better. What's your favorite character?
Oh, geez. My favorite character. This is hard because I don't like any of them. Because, I mean, I think Frank gets his just desserts. He's
a big piece of turd.
Yeah, he's just a big piece of shit. Yeah, I'll say shit. You say turd.
I'm trying to be funny.
You be the lady.
I'm trying to be funny.
And Kirsty's just weak.
Yeah. And this is another area where things are drastically different from the book to the movie.
I mean, I'd honestly have to say Rory because he's got the least amount of anything.
I mean, if you can't, that's fine.
I can't really pick a favorite because I don't like any of them. Julia's the most interesting, I think.
And like, she's not even that interesting in the movie.
I mean, she's not really interesting in the book at all either. She's just the most interesting of the characters that you're given.
You do, even in the movie, you do get a lot more of her and Frank in, like, their history.
Yeah, but all the stuff that makes her interesting is just all internal. The way she refers to her victims, seeing her move her feelings from Rory to Larry and justifying things to herself. She's the most interesting character in that regard. And it's all inside her head. So it's hard stuff to show anyway. But I don't really like any of the characters. But she's the most interesting of the characters I'm given.
See here, for me, out of the movie, I'd probably have to go with Larry. He's a fun, likable guy. Like, you don't get a lot of history or story with him. But he's got a lot of personality. He's excited about moving and changing things. He wants to take care of his family. You know, he's jovial. He
loves his wife, worried about her.
Loves his daughter. He's worried about her.
That's why I said Rory would probably be my favorite character out of all of them, but Julia's the most interesting.
Like, even in the movie, I think he's a lot more interesting than Julia. Like, you get a lot of personality out of him. You don't get really in the personality out of any of them. But again, that might just be a difference between screen and he's definitely.
Also, I like the name character. Rory better than Larry.
Yeah, I don't know.
Why is that the only character name that changed?
And Steve and Neville. Or Kai. Or just random boyfriend. So, least favorite character.
Frank, he's a piece of shit.
That's easy, though.
That is easy. I guess I'd have to not like Kirsty then, because I don't like the doe-eyed friend who's just constantly in love with the best friend thing and just whiny.
Yeah. I'm kind of glad that was changed in the movie.
Sad dog, I guess.
That it's an actual family unit.
Yeah.
So it actually added a little bit more interest into it than this weird love square.
Yeah, I don't like sad dog Kirsty.
I mean, I don't really have one that I didn't like. Because, I mean, you're not supposed to like Julia. You're not supposed to like Frank.
If you had to. But if you had to. I managed to pick one.
I guess Steve, maybe? Because he's just
again?
there. He's Kirsty's boyfriend.
Oh.
And well, not even boyfriend. Like, they meet at this random dinner party.
Guy who met at party.
Yeah.
Cat breeder
and,
guy.
like, I guess you could, maybe that's when they hook up. It's implied. Even though when you go back to her place when she has the dream, he's there, but he's sleeping on the floor. So, like, did you do it or not? Or did you get back to her place like, no, I want to preserve myself. You can stay here. And, maybe we can date, but... Because, like, he does show up in a couple other scenes.
Neville only shows up at the party.
Because he shows up when she's at the pet store, too.
So your favorite character is just this random guy?
No, my least favorite character.
Oh, your least favorite. That's right, we're on least favorite. Your least favorite character is random guy.
I mean, I guess, because, again, I don't want to fall into you're supposed to hate Frank. You're supposed to... Well, not hate, but you're supposed to not like Frank and Julia because they're the antagonists. And...
Alright, I will not like Kirker then.
Who?
Kirker.
Okay.
Kircher. I think it's got a C in it, or an H in it. Never mind. Kircher.
Yeah.
Kircher. I will not like Kircher then. He's the one who gave Frank the box and started the entire movie.
Yeah, I don't think you get a name for... You definitely don't in the movie. I don't know if he's credited in the credits as having a name. But, your least favorite part?
My least favorite part... And this is just a personal thing with me because I don't like bodily fluids. I don't like the constant mentioning in the book. I understand why it has to be described to make you get that fear because they're fear-creating words, but emptying bowels and vomiting and bowel clenching and bile and... It's a bodily fluids thing. It's a personal thing. I don't like it. That's my least favorite part. I get it because those are... fear indicator words and phrases to help get the fear across in the book.
Well, did it work though?
It made me understand.
And it's not even necessarily fear. But it's those feelings that we don't like.
Yes. It's in the context. It's fear because it's things that help demonstrate that the characters are afraid and how afraid they are. Like in a movie when you see someone's pants get wet because they've just pissed themselves.
Yeah.
Descriptors like that get the same image across. To let me know how afraid the character is. And I understand it, but it's my least favorite part.
I'd have to go with Kirsty's got a couple scenes that are very poorly acted. Like when she throws the box out the window. It's just horrible acting.
Kirsty's dumb decision when she doesn't care if she dies as long as Frank doesn't get her, but she doesn't break a window to get out of it. She just can't open it, so she gives up. I don't like that part either. Like, you literally just thought to yourself, I don't care if I die smashing onto the pavement if I get the window open to climb out it.
But you don't break the window.
But you won't break it because you don't want to cut yourself.
And see, like in the movie, she throws the box out of the window.
Oh, this is a completely different scene. This is at the end.
Frank is distracted and she runs out the door.
She does that in the book too. The scene I'm talking about is in the end when she's running from him after he finger straws, but in the movie, but he kisses her and sucks her life out.
Yeah.
In the book to Julia.
He kisses Julia too, but he's doing his finger straws. But yeah, no, it's just Kirsty's got a couple parts that are just really poorly acted.
Now she's got parts that are really poorly written too. So,
like they're really intense scenes, and her bad acting just pulls you out of it a little bit. So, did you find it to be interesting though?
The book in general?
Yeah. Especially since this isn't your typical genre, and
that's why it's difficult to say because this is not my typical genre. I do like dark fantasy, which this is classified as a dark fantasy, so I do like dark fantasy. But what was the question again? Is
the story interesting?
Yeah, the story's interesting. What was the question again? I'm sorry. I'm sorry. The air conditioner's off and my brain's starting to boil. It's 103 degrees. But yeah, I think it's interesting. The gross stuff aside that bothers me as a personal thing aside, yeah, it's interesting. I mean,
that's just something that has to be there.
It's just something that has to be there.
Like, you would find the movie equally as disgusting because he's got, like, goo dripping off of him. And...
I'm not mad that we bought it. I don't consider
Me either.
I don't consider it a waste of money because our library doesn't have it, so we did have to buy it. And I don't think it's a waste of money.
You'd consider maybe reading it again? maybe.
Yeah, I might read it again.
Yeah,
I give it 4 check marks because I can't draw stars.
Obviously I find it interesting because I watched it several times. As far as the movie franchise goes, my actual first Hellraiser that I watched was Hellseeker, the 5th movie.
Are you allowed to watch them out of order?
Doesn't really matter a whole lot. Which
Okay.
is like funny though, because 5 is like a direct sequel to this story because it has Kirsty in it again, and her husband comes across the box somehow. I forget. And spoiler for if I ever get around to doing this series, which I'm sure I will, it's my favorite. And part of that might be the nostalgia thing, but it's definitely got a much more interesting story. And I like the character of Pinhead. So like I think I went and got the book and then I watched the movie or whatever. I really got into Hellraiser. And at that time in my life I was doing the goth thing, so you're supposed to like this kind of stuff anyways. But the ideas in it were compelling. They actually inspired, like, Clive Barker and Thomas Harris were big inspirations for me wanting to become a writer because I got sucked into Clive Barker and Thomas Harris instantly. More so the Hannibal thing, but that's pretty much all Thomas Harris has written anyways, so.
So this is you asking me questions, but I've got a question for myself.
Okay.
Having read the book, would I watch the movie? No. And not just because I don't like horror. While I did find the book interesting enough, in our summary, I don't find the movie interesting enough to actually watch it.
Yeah, as a movie, it, like I said,
I wouldn't watch this
falls very flat.
I wouldn't watch this as a movie, even if I didn't dislike horror, because it's not that I find them scary. I don't like some of the visual things they do. It creeps me out.
Like the gore and stuff, or
not the gore, pretty much just the
eyeball
eyeball thing and other gore. Stuff.
And you do inadvertently get some eyeball stuff because of shadows and play with that.
Eyes freak me out, so I don't like horror because they always do weird stuff with eyes, probably because it is freaky.
It is.
And I don't like to watch it for that reason. Not necessarily because I don't like scary movies, because I'll read the scary book, it's fine. I would read the book again, but I wouldn't watch it as a movie.
How scared do you think it got you? And this one isn't necessarily like a scare thing. It's more of a gore.
Yeah, this isn't scary.
It's disturbing. It
makes you uncomfortable because it's not necessarily. I don't think it's scary at all.
It's more of a disturbed thing.
It is a disturbing
like an upset
thing. And it's not
or
scary.
Grossed out.
It's not necessarily not scary because I'm reading it versus watching it, and watching things is scarier. I have a very active imagination. I can visualize very well. That's why I gagged when I read some of it. But it is not scary, but it is disturbing and gross.
That's part of, like, slasher movies rely more heavily on gore because it's designed to be more disturbing than it is straight up scary. Whereas, like, Paranormal Activity is scary.
Yeah.
Like, you could probably actually watch Paranormal Activity. It doesn't do any eyeball stuff.
No, but we talked about the reason I can't watch Paranormal Activity because that stuff is real and it freaks me out. Can I just interject real quick? Because I'm looking at the back of the book and it's got his little picture on it. Mm-hmm. This Clive Barker in this picture, he looks exactly like who I would expect to write this book, but I would also expect...
He does.
I would also expect to find him on a street corner performing magic where he, like, pulls cards out of his stomach.
Have you ever seen Lord of Illusions?
No.
He did that one too.
But he does. He looks like one of those freak out magicians where they, like, pull cards out of their stomach.
Chris Angel?
Yeah, Chris Angel.
Yeah, he does.
That's exactly what he looks like in this picture.
Anyways, back to...
Sorry about that. I was just looking at his picture on the back of the book.
I kind of got out of order here, so we'll just go through and then we'll talk about fixes. What was the scariest part?
The scariest part. And this is hard because none of it's really scary.
Well, disturbing.
I'd have to say the most disturbing part is actually in the beginning when he comes out of his mind fuck inside his head where he's over sensibilized because all his nerve endings are hyperactive. When he comes out of it and the female Cenobite is sitting on the pile of heads and they're moldering and their tongues are falling out and all this stuff. that's the most disturbing image-wise, because she's trying to be all attractive and she's the least disgusting Cenobite and she's on this pile of death and grossness. That might be the most disturbing part.
Disturbing image. I would love that.
I think that might be the most disturbing part.
Like, I would just like to look at that.
Like, I would say maybe even just the descriptions of the Cenobites at all, or the end when Frank gets ripped apart, but at that point, I'm just waiting for Frank to die, so it's not disturbing.
Well, that and, like, you've already kind of been inoculated to it.
Yeah. So I think
mentally.
that part would be the most disturbing part, I think. And again, it's
which
not
is,
in the
like...
movie. All the best parts are not in the movie.
Yeah, because, I mean,
typical.
They do show up in the beginning, but you have, like, this square pillar that's rotating around, and it's got body parts and flesh hanging off of it, and hooks and nails and stuff, and there's, like, chains, and it's dark, and you're kind of getting glimpses of them moving about. And then it does finally, like, kind of stop on them, and he gives his little monologue and stuff.
Either that part or when Frank first shows up again and there's nothing Frank about Frank left except for his voice.
Yeah.
Because that's disturbing imagery, because what my mind does with that information.
That was something I forgot about. Frank from the movie too is human Frank and dead Frank are actually played by different people. And I didn't actually like pay enough attention to know that before watching it this time. But they are played by different actors, and like I'm like, why is his voice so fucking different?
That's actually really interesting. I like that because it visually it's a live Frank, and then Frank after he's been torn apart and sewn back together, because a big part of it too is he's stitched back together.
Oh yeah, so you don't ever get that with
to create this new Frank,
which would have been a lot.
So I like
a
that.
little bit better to get like a Chucky looking Frank. But, like, you don't, after he's dead and he comes back, he literally doesn't have skin. He only gets to a point where he's muscle and ligaments and sinew and stuff, and, like, the parts of bone that show through that. That's why he takes Larry's skin in the movies, because he doesn't have skin. He can't. Like, for whatever reason, he doesn't grow.
He doesn't have skin until he takes Rory's skin either, but he doesn't, like... in The Mummy, come back a little bit at a time, like bones and then muscles and stuff. Yeah. He's already this gross concatenation of some of its bones, some of its muscle, and it's sewn on and held on with hooks.
Oh, so yeah, like that would have been a lot more... It's
grotesque and it's disturbing, and he comes back in different parts. Like, he'll be, like, more muscly here or some sinew here. It's not like a fluid, like, now all my bones are back and now all my muscles are back, and he's slowly becoming more human-like. So, like, he's still always just stitched together and disturbing. Because they do use the words infibulated and sewn together and stitched together and ripped at the seams to let you know that he is still sewn and held together.
And see, like, this is one of those ones that, like, I want to be made now because maybe they could get away with the things he was trying to do originally. Also, you could be a lot more explicitly sexual about it and still maintain that R rating. He probably wouldn't have a problem getting the NC.
Yeah.
But like on that, the original, like when he comes back, it's just like goo bubbling up through the floor, and then it becomes body parts. So like you get this spine, and it's got like spinal cord tendrils sticking out of it, and then like a brain pops up, it attaches into it, and you like kind of arm thingies. And, like, it would have been really cool to leave it there, but then, like, you know...
kind of like Dr. Manhattan first making himself.
Kind of, yeah. But then, like, you know Harry Potter?
I do know Harry Potter.
The fetus Voldemort?
Yeah.
Like, before he gets dumped in the pot or even in the brain station. The mind station.
Yeah.
He's kind of like that, but he looks like a burned up, crispy body, too.
Kind of like in... the Mummy movie with Brendan Fraser as the mummy starts to come back together.
Kinda, but like no, he like a full body of flesh. It just looks burnt. So it kind of undoes what you just did, and then he goes to muscle and sinew and tendon and ligaments and stuff, and it kind of undoes that. But that that is the most grotesque part to me from the movie is when it bubbles up and you have this like. Just a couple ribs hanging off of the spine and just these random body parts that aren't really human looking yet. And then right after that, after he gets ripped apart the first time, like his fate, or right before that, his face getting put back together, because it's like an ear chunk over here, and you wouldn't like this part, and it bothers me because it doesn't make sense. But his eyes are there, and it looks really weird and creepy.
Yeah.
But I mean, it's a disturbing image.
No thanks.
So yeah, let's go into fixes. I'm gonna go ahead and start because I'm already kind of in it.
Go ahead, fix it.
I think it would have been a little bit more interesting that there's just this husk of human body like laying in the middle of that floor, for especially for the book, because it's his soul that gets ripped apart, and then like his spirit or whatever is able to come back into the body, and that's like you see his mental version of himself is all jacked up, and then working with the body or whatever. That would have been a little bit interesting.
Yeah.
To keep that mind thing going instead of making it like a Freddy Krueger style. I kill you in your dream and the same thing happens in real life. Go ahead.
It's difficult for me to say fixes because I don't know what I would fix. It's all right. Better characters, giving the
Just
characters a little more
fluff.
A little more to them. Flesh the characters out a little more.
And that's valid. There's nothing wrong with that.
Yeah. I would have liked to see the Cenobites more, but I can't figure out where in the book that would make sense.
I said maybe having a scene that actually gets more in depth to what happened to Frank, because then you get that S&M stuff and...
But I would only want that, like, if I just read this book, like I didn't know there was the Pinhead movie, where the Cenobites are a more active thing. I wouldn't...
They're not, though.
I don't know that. I wouldn't want that. Like, Hellbound Heart, it's about...
It's about Julia.
Yeah, it's about Julia. So, like, for the book, it's fine what it is. But because my mind, the only thing I know about it is Pinhead, the movie. The only thing I know is that Pinhead is in it, so I'm assuming he's in it more. Based on that assumption, I would want him to be in the book more, but you're telling me now he's not really, and
it's
going through the summary, he's not really. It's about the same, so I'm fine with it. So, better fleshed out characters. That's my only fix.
Yeah, I don't necessarily think more Cenobites would be better in the movie anyways, because it would... again, inoculate you a little bit and kind of take away from what's trying to be done there.
Because they are literally just in the first few pages and the last few pages. Which is fine for what the book is. I like the way it is.
For the first part, and then when Frank tells Julia, I think you get a little bit of it. And then at the end.
Frank doesn't tell Julia about them?
Well, when he tells her what happened in the movie. And where he disappeared to. Because Julia kind of actually sees that he's in a different place.
Well, she sees that through the wall that he's this grotesque monster thing, and he talks about the deal he made and that they can't come through, they have to be invited over. That's the only thing he talks about.
Yeah, I mean, again, same for the movie, a little bit. It's a movie that could definitely be a little bit longer. I think everything that needs to be there is there, other than fleshing the characters out, and a little bit better act. And... something when we kind of briefly talked about it last night is Julia's supposed to be really pretty, and the actress they got for the movie is not super pretty. I mean, she's still in the doable range, but she's not an unattractive woman, but she's not...
Yes, the book does go out of the way to remind you that she's very pretty.
But I know Clive Barker is working on trying to redo this movie, but it's been a long fight because the company that holds the rights keeps putting out a bunch of garbage just to maintain the rights, and so that's made it difficult for him. And it's just your other general production hell kind of shit, getting it off the ground, getting funding and support and finding a place to do it. Because like he's been working on doing that since I was in the Navy. I remember seeing those initial, like they had some stuff going and it just fell apart.
So this worked out about as well as I thought it would. Maybe a little better than I thought it would.
It wasn't too bad.
We might do this again.
Yeah. I mean, I definitely recommend it. I recommend the whole series, the whole franchise of Hellraiser up till like part 6 or 7. I don't know, they get really bad for a while, but that's also partly a product of 2000s horror, where it was just terrible movies for the most part all around. There's some gems in there, but they're hard to find. And then one of the newer movies is... I don't think it should be a Hellraiser movie, because it like deviates so far from the initial lore and everything.
Yeah.
That it just kind of goes into this weird place, but they do some interesting things, and it is creepy as fuck.
I don't know if I would recommend the book.
I would recommend the book. I recommend all of Clive Barker's books.
I'm particular about books, and then of course, the people I would recommend it to wouldn't like it anyway.
True. But you're recommending it to these people.
Oh, well, if I'm recommending it to these people and not people that I actually know who wouldn't like this book, then yeah, I guess I'd recommend it.
I mean, you wouldn't even recommend Lori look at the cover. All right, so that's it. That's our interview. High five.
Ouch.
Thanks for listening. Come back for whatever's coming next. I don't know. Like I said, I got somebody who I'm supposed to be talking with about movies in general, doing reviews, maybe some other stuff. We'll see what happens. We got to get all the logistics on that worked out, and I got to work out logistics on just talking to him in general. But stick around. We'll do some more fun stuff. Bye.
Bye.